Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Lunch with the Library. This program is intended for teens and adults, but feel free to have everyone join in. Our chats are focusing on reading and books. Our panel today consists of Jessica, Meredith, and me. My name is Molly, and I will be moderating for you this morning. Ladies, I'm going to have you introduce yourselves. Jessica, let's start with you.
Hey everyone, I'm Jessica. I work at the library as the Senior Administrative Assistant.
Meredith, go ahead.
That sounds pretty impressive. I'm Meredith. I am a programming librarian at Cedar Rapids Public Library. I work mostly out of the downtown branch.
All right. We are going to go live today, but if you have questions for our speakers, leave us a comment. Feel free to tell us what you're reading, and for those more in-depth questions, please feel free to call the library. We still are answering the phones at this time. You might notice that we're in a little bit different setting, though. We are all working from home, as many of you probably are as well. Yes, look at our surroundings. So you may, this is just a little disclaimer, you may see a few feline or canine friends wander through, and also maybe a couple children. Who knows? We don't know. So it can be an exciting morning for everyone. Well, afternoon for everyone. Okay, we're going to get started with our questions now. The first one, this is my favorite one because I just love to hear what everyone is reading. So ladies, what are you reading currently? Meredith, I'm going to start with you this time.
I brought props. This was the last thing I grabbed from the library. Can you see it? It's the Magical Family.
The Magical Family, that sounds lovely.
This is, as I left, it's Pagan Living in Harmony with Nature. I thought we'd need some projects for the next however long time we'll be here. I have my, Veggie Mama cookbook.
Ooh.
Right? So it has 100 plus family-friendly vegan recipes. It's a wholesome guide to feeding.
Have you tried any of them out yet, Meredith?
No.
Later date. Get back to us on it.
I have beginner gardening. True. Because that's another thing that I intend on doing while hanging out at home. And those are my flip-through books. I do have one that I'm reading in earnest as well. This one I'm really excited about. This is my book of optimism, Successful Aging, right? So this one actually, this is by Daniel J. Levitin, and it's just really beautiful. It's philosophical and neurological, and it just kind of talks about how your golden years are not necessarily to be squandered, and how you can live life to the fullest, and how that kind of second adulthood is possible in your life. So I'm very excited and optimistic that I'm going to find that second adulthood after my children move out and all that. And then this is my fun book. You see this? The feminist Ryan Gosling memes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I mean, they're all so good. So I picked one out for you today, too, just so you know what I'm reading. So here it is. Right? So they're legit memes. Sorry, I can't get there. Can you read it? Hey girl.
That's all I got.
I literally have no idea how to react to someone who hasn't read Judy Blume's Forever. Right? So that's what's going on in this librarian's life right now.
Oh, hello. Okay, Jessica, do you want to share what you're reading currently?
Okay, well, since Meredith brought props, I got my book. So, okay, look at this one. Stephen King's The Stand.
Oh, yeah. Seems a little heavy. Popular choice.
I was going to say.
I read this for the first time in middle school, so it seems...
way.
Yeah. They didn't have young adult when I was in middle school, so I went from children's chapter books to Stephen King.
Yep, I think, isn't that just interesting how we didn't grow up in a world with YA and now it's everywhere?
Yeah, I think, I want my kids to read what they want to read, but I think I'd be a little horrified at the same time.
Well, and I mean, the other thing, it was Stephen King and V.C. Andrews and That was YA at the time. I remember.
I put some Christopher Pike in there in between too.
Yep, exactly.
Like that was my transitional author, I think, right? And then it was straight to Insomnia, which I still love. Yep. Right?
Yeah, I think after I read The Stand, it was It.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nope.
I won't see the movie, but I will read the book. So, otherwise, I have an audiobook as well. This is Station 11, Another Flu Pandemic, because why not?
Because why not? We're all stuck at home for a reason. Now you're making me feel like on Friday, we talked about how I was reading The Ghost Bride, which Jessica, I think you read as well. I saw it on your
Yes, I did. It was good.
It was really good. So I just finished that, and I have not started a new one yet because there's been life happening. So I'm not reading anything at this exact second.
Well, I left it downstairs, but I did finish reading Kevin Wilson's Nothing to See Here.
How's that?
What's
Seeing
that?
the cover, it has a child on fire.
Oh.
Gosh, I just love being in your brain. I love
It's actually quite funny. It's about a woman who takes care of children who start on fire.
Wow. Okay. Well,
No, it's not as morbid as The Stand or Station 11 in this current climate.
Well, that leads us perfectly into our next question, which is, what type of book do you typically read? And for this, I'm going to switch us over to a different view so that when our highlighted speaker is talking, that they are the ones that you can see the most. That way you can see if you have props. So, Jessica, let's start with you this time since we started with Meredith last time.
Sure. For me, I like to, sorry, my cat just entered. I like to read anything that makes me think, whether it's dystopian or has sort of that emotional element.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Nothing to See Here was funny, but it's like, what would I do if I had to take care of fire children?
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. I always think about, I never finished this book because it was too hard for me to read, not in like a complex way, but in a like emotional way. But there's a book called Dry. I believe it's by Neil Shusterman, and it's about hi Cuddles. It's about how the world runs out of water and how people handle that. And it kind of echoes some of the things that we're seeing in today's society, like the hoarding and how people come together either as a community and supporting each other or against each other, basically. And so I didn't finish it. I got about halfway through and I was like, oof, this is a lot. So there we go. There's mine. Meredith, how about you? What type of book do you usually read?
Well, it's interesting. Usually I read memoirs or biographies and a lot of nonfiction. But when you're talking about Dry, I listened to After the Flood. Have you seen that one or heard that one at all? And it's like the opposite, right? Like I was so engrossed in this story of it's after this great big flood. Like the world is sinking because the oceans are rising. And it was probably one of the first works of fiction that I had, you know, I listened to it in a long, long time. And it kind of made me fall in love with fiction again. But this book in particular, I think, was really powerful to me because the main character is a mom and she's got 2 kids and she's looking for one and has one in tow. And just like her character development in kind of like a changing world really kind of mirrored how I feel as a parent. You know, it just spoke to me so directly. It was really interesting. And I really appreciated going back into fiction like that. I will say the last fiction book that I listened to was The Notebook, and I cried a lot. So I don't really know what I like, but I enjoyed the experience. I was in the kitchen with my arms on the sink, like with my shoulders shaking and tears going down my face. It was just so beautiful. I prefer to listen to fiction, though. I like to read nonfiction. I also listened to The Other Americans. Have you read that?
I don't know that one.
I can't remember the author's name because I never do. And that's why I became a librarian, because I can always look it up. But it's every chapter is another character's voice. and there were so many different voices. And then, read with a voice actor. It was just so powerful. Like these people were just speaking to you in your ears. And I felt the same way with There There by Tommy Orange too. That was such a good listen. I mean, that's a powerful book no matter what. But I love listening to fiction, but I will read nonfiction on my own. So there you go. That's the long answer, Molly. That's the long answer.
That's okay. That's all right. So I'm going to ask you our next question, which is, do you have a favorite author? It seems like you guys have maybe favorite areas that you like to read in, but do you have a favorite author that you've read?
100% no.
No? Okay.
No.
Yeah,
not at all.
Same. I would say no. I have authors that I kind of follow and see what they're writing, but if I'm not excited about it, I'm not going to read it just because it came from that author.
So none of our James Patterson groupies, huh?
And like the authors that I do go to, because I know that I like them, I think are often short story authors. I really like picking up like a Eudora Welty short story collection and reading one of those because I know I'll like it, and it's quick and it's kind of like boom, something to kind of like fill me up with something good. I also really like poetry too, I guess. And so like I find that I'll go back to, I'll read, something from Jack Kerouac, or I have a friend, Jason Morris, who's a poet in San Francisco, and I'll always pick up something of his if I need a good shot of something. Emily Dickinson, I have favorite people poets that I'll go to, but not authors of fiction or nonfiction, I feel like. Although I do love me some Mary Roach. Don't get me wrong. She's amazing. I would read all of her books all the time.
I think there are definitely those authors that, you know that their stories are going to be good. So I gravitate back to them anyway. It's not necessarily like I have to read their next book. But it seems like there always is somebody that you can go back to and say, I know this is going to be a good book. So I'm trying to think of, like, Patrick Ness is one of my favorites. So I talk about him a lot. Kate DiCamillo,
right.
I love. Patrick Ness. YA dystopian for the most part. One of his most famous is the Chaos Walking trilogy. And it starts out with basically a village of all men. And they can hear each other's thoughts. And so that's really intriguing. And the way that they do it in the audiobook is brilliant. It's just like cacophony, everybody talking at once. But even more magical is the written version. And the page just looks crazy. It's different fonts and different texts all throughout this page that just shows all of these different thoughts. So the first book starts out, though, with the main character who's a teenage boy. He doesn't hear people's thoughts yet because it starts when they age to a certain age, which I can't remember, probably 18 because it's YA. But what happens then is that he finds a female. And so he has to protect her and try and save her from what's going on in this crazy society. He's also written A Monster Calls. You might know that one. It's really beautiful and was turned into a movie. People know that I like to kind of do those tie-ins when I can find them. But the artistry in that one is beautiful. And the other one he wrote that was more dystopian is called The Rest of Us Just Live Here. And it's about all of those people that live in a city that aren't the hero. So they're really? Like, oh, yeah. They're like, oh, there they go. They're off to save the world again. So that one wasn't my favorite of his, but it was a really unique take on things. So, yeah, I always know I can go back to him and see what he likes or what he's writing, and it'll probably be good. So, yeah. Jessica, do you have somebody like that?
Not really, no.
Oh yeah, we kind of talked about that. We got too long-winded, ladies.
Yeah, that's fascinating. But I think I really appreciate the idea of what's the one about the non-hero? The rest of us just live here. That's kind of how I feel right now. There's so many people doing pretty amazing things in the world, and I'm like, oh, I'm still here. I still have a story, I guess, but what am I really doing? I don't know. Hanging out talking about books. That's pretty cool.
Right, that's hero's work.
Well, I don't know. Keeping people connected is pretty important, I think. Right? I mean, kind of goes back to what we do in general, working at the library. But
So let's go to our next question. And now I think you probably already answered this a little bit, but audiobooks, how do you feel about them? I've heard the debate that they're not really reading. How do you ladies feel? Meredith, let's go ahead and start with you.
did you not hear me tell you that they make me cry and weep? I love them. I love them. I love them. It's really how I get most of my books digested, I'll say. I think that for me specifically, I do most of my listening while I'm doing dishes or stuff around the house before my kids get up, things like that. And those are kind of golden moments. And so I love being able to do something else while I'm hearing a story or experiencing something. Mm-hmm. And I think that from like a literacy perspective, I think they're totally legit. I think that you're still understanding a story. You're still immersing yourself in a different way of thinking. I think that, from like a more early literacy perspective too, like you're still getting vocabulary that's new and different and sentence structure. And so I think they're totally legit. That's a book, people. An audiobook's a book. You heard it from this librarian.
I'm gonna quote someone. Legit. That's it. Audiobooks. They're books. Got it.
Put it on a button.
There we go. There we go. Jessica, how about you? I mean, obviously.
Yeah, I love audiobooks. I've always got an audiobook going while I'm reading a paper book.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
and sometimes I don't have time to read a physical book, but I still want a story.
Mm-hmm.
So I get them from Overdrive at the library. I have an Audible account. I listen to books repeatedly. So, but my audiobook collection is almost getting a little bit bigger than my book collection at home, which is fine. It's not a bad problem to have.
Right.
No.
I'm the same way though. I definitely like to have an audiobook of one genre going while I'm reading a book of a different genre. So if I'm reading that dystopian fiction in a physical copy, then I'm listening to a teen romance or something. Secrets, I basically only read YA. That's kind of my job. So
yeah, and I can't read any YA at all.
Yeah. Ghost Braid was that nice like crossover. I could see it in both categories, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I never grew up. But that's not fair because there is a lot of good stuff that happens in young adult. So don't take it and kind of toss it away. And I know a lot of our audience and a lot of people in general who are adults read tons of young adult fiction. So yay, audiobooks though. Okay. This one I'm going to spring on you a little bit. What is your highest rated book on Goodreads?
You want to talk about secrets?
Uh-oh. Yeah.
I don't do Goodreads.
What? That's okay. Not everybody does. That's all right, though. Hi, Diego.
I'm on Goodreads, but I couldn't say off the top of my head which is my highest. Just that I like things.
I like things.
I do, and I'm not one of those that I'm always giving 5s to stuff that really deserves a 3, but I don't know. I just read too much that I can't think of anything.
So let me, I use Goodreads quite a bit. I always set a challenge, but never really get as far as I would like on my challenges. Sometimes I use graphic novels to kind of help that a little bit. But here
also a book. It's legit.
Yes, I agree.
What?
I also agree it is a legit book.
Oh, graphic novels, for sure. But they go a lot quicker for me than a normal novel, for sure.
It's still reading, fine.
So here are a few of my 5 stars, just as a quick go down the list here. The Abhorsen trilogy by Garth Nix, an older one, but a really cool kind of high fantasy mixed with modern world. It was really great. It's a trilogy, like I said. So One of the ones that I just recently have read is the Tea Dragon Society. That one's a kiddo book, but it's got a lot of diversity in it and some really great themes. That's by Katie O'Neill. Howl's Moving Castle is one of my favorites of all time. Also made into a classic movie at this point. I would say classic. I don't know if it actually is. Yeah, The Hate U Give obviously is on there. A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. And then I will talk about Bloom, which is a graphic novel that just was really charming. Was really nice. It was just a really nice one about a bakery and two young guys finding love, and that was really great. So, okay, we're going to make this our last question here because I think we're probably running a little long. And we're going to go ahead and say, how many books would you say you read a year?
Well, since I actually use Goodreads, Meredith, I typically have a goal to read about 60 books a year.
Oh my God, that's so many.
But when you're reading a paper book at the same time as listening to audiobook, it's not that hard. So I typically
You say.
Right, that's what she says.
That's what you say.
So I typically get to my 60, but then I also go over on occasion. So right now, as of today, I have finished 24 out of 60 books.
Wow. What? Okay, let me pull back up my Goodreads here. One moment.
Last year, I read 71. 2017, it was 63. 2016, it was 83.
So I have, at this point, March 20-something, have finished 4 books this year. 4.
Hey, 4 is great.
Yeah, and that is the moral of the story, is no matter how fast or slow you read, no matter what's happening in your life, as long as you're reading at some point, picking up a book, picking up an audiobook, a graphic novel, anything, that is the most important thing. Meredith, you're giggling down there. How many books have you read?
Worst librarian ever. Okay, so I don't do Goodreads. I have a friend who has this great idea. She just wants to keep track of the books she's read. She doesn't care to rate them, whatever. So she has an Instagram page where she finishes a book and she just snaps a picture. I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. So I don't know if you can see this. Oh, you're not going to be able to see it at all.
No.
I'll send a picture.
There.
I have 2.
You
I
have
have 2 this year.
Yay!
Good job.
Start a lot of books. I don't finish many. But I've got through 2 books this year. For sure.
That's a good question, too.
For sure.
Do you count the books that you don't finish?
No, I don't count those. Those don't count.
You do?
No.
I mean, if I get more than 50%
That's how you get
of the
70.
way, yeah, I mean, I have credit for that 50%. I had to slog through that.
That's true. That's true. That's very
fair.
true.
That's
But
totally
if
fair.
I quit after like the first quarter, no.
Mm-hmm. Do you usually read?
That's why we should count minutes for the spring reading challenge instead of books, right? Always count minutes instead of books.
I think that's a fair idea
Mm-hmm.
for anyone who's listening. So that's all we have time for today. I want to thank our library ladies here for joining us and talking about books. We really appreciate it. For those of you who are joining us from home, I hope you stay safe and well. Stay home, read some books. It's going to be a great time. We're going to get so many Goodreads books. We're going to all meet our challenge for Goodreads. Also, please check out the Spring Reading Challenge and log your books that way as well. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye, patrons. Miss you.
Bye.
Bye.